Parenting is the hardest job, and there is not a close second. Raising high-performing teen athletes or performers? That's a high-stakes job. I'm Nate Crandall, joined by fellow certified high-performance coach Steve Galley. We coach ambitious parents like you, and also your high-performing teens, because when you both level up, connection and results don't just improve, they multiply. Welcome to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast. We have some burning questions for you. Are you clear about your teen's strengths?
I think so, but I think I could be clearer. I don't have teens anymore.
Yeah,
but
hard to be clear about.
I definitely would have been better with the information and things that we discuss and the questions that we ask. I would have definitely been a better dad, would have been a better coach.
Well,
and can continue to use these even though my kids are adults.
I'm the older I get, the more convinced I am we need to do a better job as a culture of identifying people's strengths and utilizing them, helping them be in a position to use them.
I would agree with you. And that's what we're going to hit in this episode, Nate, which is number 3 of a series that we started with episode 125 on youth specialization in sport and other performance activities. And so this is the third one. We're going to talk about your teen strengths, how to become very clear. I know you finished up our last episode really hitting on the king high performance habit of clarity.
Yeah.
And that it is, even though it's not a destination, it's a place where we can come from, where we can get really reflective and really self-aware. And when you have that clarity, boy, watch
everything
out.
changes.
Everything changes
with clarity.
Yeah. So back to the specialization thing. How do we actually figure out what my teen is built for and his or her strengths, and then design a calendar year, a program, a plan that has a lot more sanity in it than insanity?
Well, specificity wins when you're trying to identify strengths. And we've got a tool that we're going to go through with everybody today, the Strengths Snapshot, that will be super beneficial in helping you with this. But you'll notice that it gets more to specifics. Just being like, oh, my kid's strong as an athlete. They're a great athlete. That's too vague. That's not identifying a specific thing, or, label them with a sport is not enough. Like within that sport, what do they do that makes them good at that sport? What do they bring to the table that makes them good at tennis or basketball or golf or whatever the sport you're talking about is? And it's so easy to lose focus because coaches will get really loud about, oh, your kid's great. We love hearing our kid's great. And if we hear our kid's great, from this coach over here, we're probably going to gravitate in that direction. So as parents, we got to look at a more holistic approach and look to gather data on the strengths, durability, joy, and then build a plan around this that fits your kid and allows them to grow their strengths even more and maybe even improve some weaknesses as they go along.
I love it. In the end, we're really talking about what you're going to say yes to and what you're going to say no to.
Yeah.
Life is just about decisions. I could bring in our buddy, the great wizard Gandalf, who told us once upon a time that all we have to decide is what to do with the time that we are given. So you mentioned the Strength Snapshot. Mm-hmm. If you have listened to our podcast for any length of time, you know that we are all about the tools. So let's unveil this tool. Yes. So there's 4 parts to it. I'll just start with the first and then you follow, Nate, with the next one. So the first part of this is performance. And this is a question for you as parents. And I will tell you before we do all of these questions in the Strengths Snapshot, the more feedback you get on this, the better. So you're going to have your answers. I also think it would be good to get some outside eyes. It could be from one of their coaches. It could be from another person who is familiar with the sport. But here is the question. Where does your teen consistently outperform age-matched peers? So we're not just talking of this 1 week hot streak, that this great
They shot
tournament,
the
but
ball great that weekend.
yeah, but consistently over time, where does your teen consistently outperform their peers?
And again, getting good feedback from multiple sources on this helps. And we don't necessarily mean the mom or dad sitting next to you in the stands. Oh, your kid's so good at shooting the ball. You want to get some trained eyes. And this is a good conversation to have with the coach. And it also opens up the door where, you might hear some things that your kid doesn't do as well, but that's okay. It's all feedback. It's all feedback in the quest to identify their strengths. What are some of the things they do well? The second thing that we want to invite you to look at as far as this strength snapshot is to look at durability and in which sport or activity do they stay the healthiest across a season. Fewer injuries, fewer sick days, the soreness is more manageable. Just looking for that space where maybe their body's better adapted to that sport, better adapted to that certain activity because they're able to do it more consistently and remain healthy.
Very important questions there, Nate, because injury is one of the big.
The best ability is availability. And
Yeah.
if your kid's hurt all the time, it's hard to be good.
Injuries are one of the big negatives it's a part of sports, it's a part of activity, but we're having way too many of them because of overuse and specialization. Okay, number 3, pull versus push.
Love this one.
I love this one too. So where do they self-initiate practice or reps, watching film, asking for feedback without you nagging them?
Yep.
So I'm going to go right to basketball. I know multiple people in this situation. When I was a young dad and a young coach, I had older coaches tell me, I wish I wouldn't have forced this upon my son. And what this was early morning shooting sessions. And the kids weren't always on board with it. And so you have to really ask yourself some questions. If they aren't self-initiating this, should I be doing it? And that's something that you have to decide. I know for me as a dad, I was a high school coach. I didn't force the extra stuff on my boys. I provided opportunities, but if my boys would have come to me and said, "Hey, I want to get up at 5:30 and do extra shots or things like that," then I would have supported them in that. We had a court. I don't know if I ever told you this, in the house we lived in when my kids were younger, we had a court put in the backyard.
Uh-huh.
I didn't set up a schedule. I didn't have mandatory shooting sessions. That was a place for them to self-initiate. So I know this one will bother some people, Nate, because there will be some people that push back on me, and I'm okay with that. They'll push back and say, "Well, they're just kids. They don't understand what it's going to take." And so they're going to go with the more hours equals more output.
Well, if you're forcing your kids into those hours, what are they worth anyway?
Right. Yeah.
You could do 10 hours of great work or create 10 hours of work like that where they're forced into it and they won't get anything out of it. Whereas 1 hour of self-initiated stuff, that means a whole lot more. My son, we talked about him on here before as well, ended up playing college golf. This was one of the ways I knew that he was doing something that he could go somewhere with. Is we had a unique situation. I was separated from his mom and she had moved to Florida and he was living with her down there. And he would always just send me pictures of himself out, at the driving range at 6 o'clock in the morning or putting in some extra work. And that was all self-initiated. Like he would choose to go out and do that. And a lot of it was hanging out with some of his friends. I mean, a lot of it was just working hard, trying to make some improvements. And if you see your kid, if they're doing that, pay attention to what they're doing it in. When they get to self-initiate, what is it? Because they're going to gravitate towards something that they have more intrinsic motivation for. And so that's why this is on the strengths assessment here, where you're able to find that by paying attention. What do they self-initiate in? Are they watching film because they want to learn? Are they watching a game because they want to learn how to be better at that position. They're seeking feedback without you having to nag them about it. Beautiful thing.
Yeah, and because they're self-initiating, they're gonna build confidence quicker in that
Yes,
whatever activity, whether they're not very good at it at the time or if they're really good at it at the time, their confidence is gonna grow, and and I think the confidence is gonna stick longer for sure. Okay, the
definitely.
last one. You got the last one of the
I
4
do.
strengths snapshot.
So the last question is a good one to look at. Which secondary sports or activities clearly make their primary sport better? And this is making a couple of assumptions, but it's taking a look at more of a big picture approach to your kid. Is there another sport that they're good at? Is there another sport that they perform well in? What are some of the things that make them good at that sport? Like, for example, you've got a kid that's plays soccer and he's moves his feet incredibly well. And basketball is a great second fit for him because on defense, you got to move your feet incredibly well. And so he's a good defender in basketball, good at soccer and all the things they do there, complementary skill sets. So looking for those in other areas. Oh, he's good at this. What does that mean for a primary sport?
We talked in our previous episode about being really careful about early success in a sport,
Uh-huh.
and so we're gonna use a different phrase today. If I said to our parents listening that they should not crown a primary sport until they've really answered all of the questions, I almost wonder if it's just okay to not ever crown a primary sport. I mean,
Very, very much depends on the kid.
it's gonna be so individual, isn't it?
Yes. And that like the third one, the pull versus push, that's a key one there. Is there a sport that your kid gravitates to that they really seem to enjoy, that they're self-initiating, and that may be the one that they feel inclined to say, "Oh, this is a primary sport." But that's totally individual. Parents, kids have to work together. But if you do choose a primary sport, that's okay. And that's not the same as the specialization we're talking about.
I've got a question for the parents before we get to some guardrails, and that is, when's a time when when your teen's self-drive told you more than their stat line? I think that is going back to what you were just talking about with the push and the pull.
Yes.
Like, where are they driven? Do you come home and she's in the backyard, maybe a soccer player, she's in the backyard doing what some people might consider boring footwork drills with the ball.
Yeah.
That's gonna tell you a lot.
Yeah, if they're self-selecting for stuff like that, that will tell you a ton. It's a
Right.
great thing as a parent to track. Just pay attention. Pay attention to what your teen's self-drive is telling you.
Okay, we're gonna go through some what we call workload guardrails, and we're just gonna
Good.
alternate here. This is one that we've mentioned in a previous episode, and this is dealing with the number of hours in organized sport. So if the number of organized sport hours is greater than your athlete's age, you might be veering off the road there.
Yep. Yep. This is on that dashboard that's so good to pay attention to. The free play ratio, making sure that their organized sports hours don't overwhelm that time where they can kind of self-select with the play. What else do they want to do? And just getting that free play.
Multi-block year. Think of the year. This is easy for me to think about, Nate, because I was a 3-sport athlete
Uh-huh.
before all of the club stuff, before all of the extra stuff. And so my calendar year was clearly defined, but boy, the lines have become blurred because you
Oh man.
have major overlap. So parents, look at this and try to build at least one off-season block each year for another sport. So this is if you have determined a primary sport. Create an off-season for another sport or cross-training, and also create time for deliberate free play and rest.
Absolutely. Another great thing to pay attention to as you're constructing, watch for when your kids start growing. If they hit a rapid growth phase, you may want to make sure you're dialing down the repetitive loads and getting a variety of movement. Because if they're growing and you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're really going to take all that new growth and channel it for only one thing, which is very risky.
Right. Yeah, I saw a lot of growth spurts with my basketball players before they got to high school. I would see a lot of this in the ninth grade for sure. Hey, this is something you talked about. Well, we've talked about injury all the way through this whole series. You were talking about mood check. And
Yes.
so this is where I know and here I am as a grandpa and I'm injured again from a pickleball injury, it was definitely from overuse and then just a bad decision. But I didn't do kind of a physical injury check and I went too far. But watch your kids if they have repeat overuse injuries, if there is a dramatic change in sleep, or if they just do not want to practice, do not want to play. Boy, this is time for a discussion and an audit. So, these things that we've talked, these ideas that we just ran through, they really aren't hard and fast rules. They aren't meant to be handcuffs, but they definitely can help you from driving off the road here.
Nice driver's ed analogy. Yeah, they definitely are designed to help keep you safe. Steve, if a parent did look at this and listen to some of these and be like, "Oh wow, we are actually over the line," what's one thing they could do?
Well, we talk about it all the time, and that is getting really clear on what is the big picture here. What is the purpose? What are we trying to accomplish? And taking the long view. This is why it's so important to have a great connection with your team. So you can sit down and if you want to dust off this line, dust it off. All progress starts with the truth. What is true in this situation? And then zip your mouth and let them talk. Because I think if you start talking and if you start spelling out the truth, then you're going to be able to have an honest conversation about dialing something back, making some changes, altering the what you thought was going to be the future. And you can do this without seeming like a dictator, without it being a punishment, and without making it seem like you don't have confidence in your team. And maybe just go to the pantry and get a couple bottles of common sense and bring it out and everybody take a few drinks.
It's always a good thing to do, pay attention to common sense. Hey, I wanted to just go through a couple of like yearly blueprints as examples of what it might look like. I'm going to throw out one to start out with. If I have a son, 13 years old, plays multiple sports, loves soccer, loves basketball, does a few other things, I might sit down with him and just construct one where, and he loves soccer. That's kind of his thing. That's the one he likes the most. And just set up a thing where it's like, okay, fall's going to be our primary soccer season. This is where we're really going to spend a lot of time with this, focused energy. And then we get into winter. He wants to play some basketball. Cool. We're going to play some rec basketball, just so he can have a good time with it. And maybe work on some soccer skills on the side, but just do a little bit of that depending on what he wants to do. Spring is a time where just a lot of open stuff. If he self-selects to do some soccer, that's great. Likes to run track because he likes the social nature of that. A lot of his friends run as well, so he runs with them. And then during the summer, just utilizing some of that time, improve skills, overall conditioning, spending time with family, doing some of those little things. That's the way we could approach the year with him, just to kind of keep a more holistic thing, but still allow him to get better at his primary sport.
Hey, here, this would be an example of a high school player with both a primary and a secondary sport, so a two-sporter. I saw this one a lot, was basketball and then golf. And throughout the year, you have at least one 4 to 6 week period where there's no formal team stuff. And, we're in a state that has moratoriums, but the moratoriums I've noticed don't include club teams, if I'm correct.
You are correct.
And
There's no moratorium on club ball.
So club teams will often capitalize on that, and they know the moratoriums from the high school team, and so they try to set up these moratoriums so the kids can have some rest period, and then it's just monopolized by the club teams. But
clubs don't let them have it.
Yeah, but this is where parents, you have to step in and look and ask yourself and ask your teen, what are the guardrails that we're going to set up? What do we really want to emphasize? What do we want to protect? How do we need to make adjustments?
I think one of the greatest adjustments to make, and I'll die on this hill just because of what I've seen in the last few years. The rec ball pathway is a beautiful thing because some kids love a sport, but they don't love the grind. And rec ball provides such a fun outlet for them. There's some kids that I've seen that they tried to play for the high school team and it wore them down because they loved it, but they didn't love the grind. But when they found they put together a rec ball team and they had so much fun with it, and they barely practiced, if ever, but they just had so much fun playing together, but doing something that they enjoy doing and doing it in a way that allowed them to play it just for the joy was so good for their psychology. It was great to see.
It certainly is a good long-term development component that people that definitely underrate. I also like to point out too that when you're talking about high school sports, most of the sports, it's a tryout situation. There's limited number of spots. And I just really have always hated the fact that elevating somebody because they're on the high school team, devaluing somebody because they're not on the high school team, when it has nothing to do with them as people and their character. We should be encouraging kids that do love to play. For example, you really love to, you like to play tennis, but you really don't want to practice every day. And quite frankly, you didn't make the team in the tryouts. There were other kids better than you and there's limited spots. Why shouldn't you still go play tennis?
Yeah, do it because you love it.
Yeah, you should continue to play tennis. And I think sometimes as a society and as parents, whether we say it out loud or not, we devalue kids that didn't make the school team.
Yes.
Shoot, I never make any choir anywhere. But
you love
if you turn it up loud enough, I have a good time singing.
Yes. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And there's so much to be said for just doing things because we love them. And if we're raising humans and not just highlight films, playing rec ball is a great way to go. Put together a flag football team, just play around, do some stuff for fun, because kids will often thrive in that low pressure environment where they're doing something for the joy of it, for the fun of it. They don't like the pressure, but man, they still have a great time doing it.
Love it. It doesn't have to be a consolation prize to play rec ball.
Especially in the primary situation. If I've got a primary sport and I'm all in on that, I don't have to play at an elite level in all sports. I can play my primary sport, but then just have a good time with the other ones.
Love it. Yeah. So I hope, parents, you like the 4-question strengths snapshot. We're going to be making that into a more formal tool that can be available to you. And please ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself, do I have these guardrails set up? Have we had honest conversations about the sanity or insanity of our yearly calendar with all of the sports and activities? And I also want to invite you to subscribe to this podcast and share an episode or two with your friends who have young athletes and performers so that we can grow this channel. It's on YouTube. It's called the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast. Our channel is the name of our podcast. So Nate, you're going to be excited about this because I want to tease our final episode, which is going to be 128, I believe, in the Specialization series. And so parents, this is what you can expect next time. Now that you've got the tools to protect and guide your teen, we're going to tackle a controversial topic. And this is, Crandall's going to go crazy on this one. When specialization can actually be a good move.
Love it.
Nate Crandall and Steve Galley would like to thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you love what you're experiencing and learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, please like, comment, and or leave a glowing review of this episode and the show. And to further help Nate and Steve expand their reach and impact thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, Please share the show and subscribe to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast channel on YouTube. And if you want to explore further to see what Nate and Steve are creating to help parents of athletes and performers everywhere, please visit their website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you will find a growing number of tools and resources to help you elevate your parenting. Thanks again for tuning in. Now go create a magical relationship with your athlete or performer.